You are not lost. You are hiding. Hiding behind roles. Hiding behind expectations. Hiding behind the terrifying possibility that if you showed the world who you truly are, and they still rejected you, there would be no mask left to blame, only your authentic self. This is the profound truth that Jesus revealed when he said, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you?" Most people prefer to believe they are searching for themselves, that they are lost and need to be found, because it frees them from the most confronting responsibility of all, that of actually being who they already are. The idea of being lost functions as a postponement. It allows you to justify your inauthenticity without having to face your own truth. If life feels directionless, it's because you haven't found yourself yet. If nothing feels right, it's because you're still searching. But the reality, according to ancient wisdom, is far more uncomfortable. You are not lost. You know exactly who you are. You are simply terrified of being that person. This defense is not only common, it is culturally reinforced. We live in a world that normalizes the perpetual search, that glorifies finding yourself as if you were a missing object, that encourages endless self-discovery workshops while never demanding actual self-expression. The teachings of the Essenes cut through this illusion. They understood that the divine essence within you is not hidden or absent, it is suppressed. You are not on a journey to find yourself. You are on a journey to stop pretending you don't already know who you are. And this fear manifests in countless ways every day. It's easier to say, "I don't know what I want," than to admit you know exactly what you want, but are afraid to pursue it. It's more comfortable to claim, "I'm still figuring myself out," than to acknowledge that you've been hiding the parts of yourself that don't fit societal expectations. It's safer to remain in the search than to face the vulnerability of actually being found, of being seen as you truly are. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also knew that most people would rather die than face their authentic self, because authenticity demands that you abandon the protective personas you've constructed. The person who claims to be lost has not yet understood that they are not missing. They are concealed, and the concealment is self-imposed. The chaos you feel is not confusion. It is resistance. You can live authentically. But for that, you need to abandon the comfortable narrative that you are still searching. You need to accept that what most terrifies you is not the unknown. It is the known truth of who you actually are. It is at this point that the real journey begins. When you decide to stop using "I don't know" as protection and start confronting the uncomfortable reality that you do know. When you understand that being lost is just the disguise your fear uses to keep you from being vulnerable. When you realize that searching is a choice and that you can choose to simply be. This video is not about self-discovery. It is a confrontation, a call to radical authenticity. If you have the courage to continue, what comes next will not be comfortable, but it can be liberating, because from here on, being lost ceases to be an identity, and the conscious embodiment of your true self becomes the only honest path. The human psyche has a remarkable ability to protect itself from vulnerability, even if it means constructing elaborate illusions. And one of the most persistent illusions, according to Jung, is the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world's expectations. Because living behind a mask is paradoxically safe. There is a certain psychological comfort in believing that your real self is hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. When you maintain that belief, you don't need to change. You don't need to risk rejection. You don't need to be vulnerable. All you need to do is keep searching, keep exploring, keep claiming you haven't found yourself yet. Jung was precise in identifying this defense mechanism. He understood that most people hide behind the perpetual seeker identity because facing the risk of authentic self-expression is unbearable. Being authentic means that everything depends on showing up as you truly are. It means that if you reveal your genuine self and are rejected, there will be no excuses. There will be no "I was lost." No "I hadn't found myself yet." No spiritual justification to cushion the pain. There will only be you and the experience of being rejected for who you actually are. This is a reality that few can bear to contemplate, and for that reason many prefer to unconsciously sabotage their own authenticity. They reject opportunities to be genuine, avoid situations that would require vulnerability, gravitate toward relationships where they can remain hidden, postpone self-expression, and maintain patterns that ensure they never have to fully show up. All of this because deep down, it is easier to endure the vague dissatisfaction of living inauthentically than to face the terror of being truly seen and possibly rejected. Being lost becomes the perfect shield against vulnerability that hasn't even materialized yet. This psychological protection is not just internal, it is cultural. We live in a society that feeds the narrative of the eternal seeker. Social media, self-help industries, and even certain spiritual teachings reinforce the idea that you are incomplete, that you need more healing, more growth, more discovery before you can be your true self. Jesus confronted this mentality directly when he said, "Let your light shine before others." He was not speaking to those who had achieved perfection. He was speaking to ordinary people, calling them to stop hiding behind excuses and simply be who they were created to be. The Essene communities practiced this radical authenticity. They lived according to inner truth rather than external validation, understanding that the search for self is often just an avoidance of self. When you settle into the identity of being lost, you don't just avoid responsibility, you abandon your purpose. You become a perpetual student, never a teacher, a constant seeker, never a finder. And the most insidious part is that over time, this identity becomes comfortable. The person begins to truly believe they are incomplete, that their story is one of endless discovery, that their identity is fundamentally unknowable. And at this point, they no longer need external validation for their hiding. They have convinced themselves that remaining concealed is wisdom, that perpetual searching is depth. But it is not. And the ancient teachings point to another way, a way that is not easy, but is honest. The first step is understanding that this narrative of being lost, no matter how spiritually sophisticated it appears, is stealing from you the only thing that truly matters, the courage to be yourself. And only when you accept this uncomfortable truth does the possibility of genuine authenticity begin to emerge. Because the moment you stop hiding behind the story of being lost, you finally confront the real choice: to continue pretending you don't know who you are, or to courageously become who you've always been. But for that, it is necessary to dismantle another powerful illusion: the belief that other people's expectations define who you should be. In the next section, we will explore this trap, the tyranny of external expectations, and how it keeps you imprisoned in inauthenticity while your true self has been waiting within all along. If this content is resonating with you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. One of the most effective mechanisms humans have developed to avoid authentic self-expression is the displacement of responsibility onto others' expectations. The ancient wisdom understood this deeply. Teachers saw how the mind creates external standards to justify its own self-betrayal. My family won't accept the real me. Society expects me to be someone I'm not. My culture demands conformity. My partner needs me to be different. People will judge me. The world isn't ready for who I truly am. The list is endless, and the longer it becomes, the further you distance yourself from the most uncomfortable truth of all. The main obstacle between you and authentic living is your own unwillingness to disappoint others. This kind of thinking reflects what Jesus addressed when he said, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other." It is a psychological pattern where you abdicate your own truth and convince yourself that external expectations are responsible for your inauthenticity, your suppression, your inner conflict. It is an ancient mechanism inherited from generations of survival through conformity. But today it disguises itself with sophisticated narratives. Instead of religious dogma, now it's social media standards. Instead of tribal conformity, it's professional expectations, family obligations, cultural norms, societal pressures. The language changes, but the psychological function remains the same. To avoid confronting your own fear of being yourself, because authentic selfhood, true authenticity, is unbearably vulnerable. It demands that you acknowledge, "No one is stopping me from being myself, but me." And that is a truth many prefer never to face. That's why we construct these elaborate webs of external expectations, not because they are truly binding, but because it is more comfortable to believe that something outside of us is preventing, judging, limiting our self-expression. The existence of external pressure justifies our hiding. It justifies our conformity. It justifies our self-betrayal. But the wisdom teachings, with their uncompromising clarity, force us to confront the opposite. What if no one is actually stopping you? What if everything you call an obstacle to authenticity is actually a reflection of choices you have made, consciously or unconsciously? What if you surround yourself with people who don't accept you because it confirms your belief that being yourself is dangerous? What if you choose environments that demand conformity because the predictable suppression hurts less than the authentic expression that might lead to rejection? What if the expectations you claim to face are just projections you've created to avoid the only real confrontation with your own fear of vulnerability? Jung called this projection the psychological mechanism where we attribute to the external world what actually originates within us. He wrote extensively about how we see in others the judgment we hold toward ourselves, how we experience in the world the rejection we've already internalized. The truth is that the more you blame external expectations, the further you drift from the center of your own authenticity. And it's not about denying that social pressure exists or that conformity is rewarded. The ancient teachers never romanticized the difficulty of authentic living, but they insisted that even within a conformist world, the choice of how you show up, how authentic you are willing to be, is still yours. And it is precisely there that your freedom resides. The world's expectations are real, but your response to them is yours. The universe does not demand your conformity. People do, and you choose whether to comply. The pain of accepting this is significant, but it is also the beginning of authentic existence. When you stop fighting against perceived expectations, only an open space remains. A space where you can be yourself, as long as you have the courage to accept the consequences. And it is at this point that ancient wisdom meets one of its most powerful truths, that denying yourself to please others is the greatest betrayal of your divine purpose. In the next part, we will explore this teaching and understand why authenticity, not perfection, is what the soul requires. Among all the ancient teachings, perhaps none is as consistently emphasized yet consistently ignored as the call to authentic selfhood. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have will kill you." Many interpret spiritual teachings as instructions for who you should become, what you should develop, what you should achieve. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. The wisdom traditions understood something radical. You don't need to become anything. You need to stop pretending to be what you're not. To live authentically is to radically claim your inherent nature. It is to look at every role you've played, every expectation you've met, every version of yourself you've performed, and say, "This was survival, but it was not truth. And I do not wish to continue this way." Not out of rebellion, but because you understand that only those who can release false identities are free to embody their genuine self. As long as you are trapped in the belief that you must be someone other than who you are, you will remain chained to a version of yourself that has no life, only performance. The ancient wisdom teaches the exact opposite of self-improvement through conformity. Where the conformist shrinks and says, "I must be what others expect," the authentic person stands and says, "I am what I am, and now I will live from that truth." It is a kind of fierce self-acceptance, an acceptance that does not wait for permission, does not seek validation, does not outsource identity to family, culture, or society. It is an acceptance that takes everything, flaws, quirks, differences, uniqueness, and says, "This is me and it is enough." This is what the Essenes practiced in their communities, radical authenticity in the face of a world that demanded religious conformity. And here is the most challenging point. To live authentically, you need to abandon the idea that you need to be anyone other than yourself. You need to release the identity you've constructed to gain acceptance, the persona you've maintained to feel safe, and the fear of being rejected for who you truly are. Because authentic living is, at its core, acceptance of your inherent worth exactly as you are. It is you looking at everything you've hidden and deciding that none of it was shameful. Jesus taught this when he welcomed those society rejected: tax collectors, sinners, outcasts. He demonstrated that worthiness is inherent, not earned. That authenticity, not perfection, is what brings you into alignment with your divine nature. The ancient teachers believed that only when you can say yes to your whole self, light and shadow, strength and weakness, do you truly become free, and that yes requires courage. It is not the yes of someone who has achieved perfection. It is the yes of someone who accepts their humanity, of someone who embraces their uniqueness, of someone who chooses truth over approval. This self-acceptance is the foundation upon which you build not only peace with who you were, but the courage to be who you are. But this embodiment is only possible when you understand a fundamental truth. The universe has no preference for who you should be. It is not judging your authenticity. It is not scoring your conformity. It simply holds space for you to choose. In the next part, we will explore exactly this: why the universe's neutrality is not abandonment, but freedom, and how this absence of cosmic judgment creates space for you to finally be yourself. One of the most liberating yet most challenging truths to accept is that the universe has no opinion about who you should be. It has no blueprint for your life. It is not disappointed when you fail to meet expectations. It does not conspire to support or suppress your authenticity. It does not reward conformity or punish genuineness. It simply is. This realization may feel isolating, even devastating, especially for those raised believing in divine plans, destiny, soul purposes, or predetermined paths. But the ancient wisdom saw this neutrality as a profound gift. Because if nothing is predetermined, then everything is possible. The absence of cosmic judgment is for many what fuels existential anxiety. If no one cares who I am, why be authentic at all? But the teachings propose a radical reframe. They say, precisely because nothing is judging you, you are free to be whoever you truly are. And that changes everything. Freedom is not safety. It is responsibility because it carries with it the total ownership of who you choose to be. When there is no longer any cosmic authority dictating your identity, there is nothing left but your own choice. And that is terrifying. But it is in that terror that authentic selfhood becomes possible. The ancient teachings challenged the human tendency to wait for divine permission to be oneself. Jesus repeatedly confronted those who used religious law to suppress their authentic nature, because he saw it as a denial of the divine image within them. The Essenes lived in intentional communities precisely because they refused to wait for society's permission to live according to their inner truth. When you wait for the universe to validate your authenticity, you are implicitly saying, "I do not trust who I actually am." And that is why so many people live waiting for signs, for confirmations, for proof that it's safe to be themselves. Because choosing authenticity requires self-trust, and most people have been conditioned to doubt their own nature. The truth is that life owes you nothing. The world is not obligated to accept you, celebrate you, or understand you. The universe does not operate on fairness and does not reward authenticity with guaranteed acceptance. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can stop waiting for permission and start living as yourself. The wisdom traditions call us to abandon the childish stance that someone or something will tell us who to be. They want you to rise before the void and say, "This is who I am." It is here that freedom transforms into power. There is no cosmic approval needed. Perfect. That means you can be yourself on your own authority. Nothing is guaranteed. Excellent. That means you have the right to be authentic regardless of outcome. Nothing validates you externally. Good. That means your authenticity is self-determined. And this leads to the most important question. Who are you being? Because if you still live claiming you don't know yourself, that you're still searching, that you need more time, perhaps you are fleeing from the most uncomfortable reality of all. You already know who you are. You are simply afraid to be that person. There comes a moment when there are no more excuses. No more, "I'm still finding myself." No more, "I need to heal first." No more, "When the time is right." No more, "People won't understand." Just you. Just your truth. Just the choice to finally be authentic or to continue hiding. It is at this point that many people collapse, because the end of seeking means confronting an unavoidable question. Now that there is no more search to hide behind, who am I willing to be? Jung called this encounter with the self, the moment when all your personas, all your masks, all your conditioned identities fall away, and you stand face to face with your genuine nature. It is the moment when you realize you can indeed live authentically, but that it will cost you everything. Every false identity, every protective role, every comfortable lie you've told yourself about who you are. To reach this point, you need to let something die, the seeker identity. The story you've been living that says you are incomplete, that you are a work in progress, that you haven't discovered your true self yet, that you are lost and need finding. This identity needs to die because as long as it lives, you will never arrive. You will use the search as an excuse. You will use incompleteness as protection. You will use "I don't know yet" as a prison. The ancient wisdom taught that humans only become whole when they stop seeking and start being, when they stop improving and start accepting, when they stop searching and start embodying. This is what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom of heaven is within you, not that you will find it someday, but that it is already present, waiting for you to stop looking elsewhere and simply be where you are, as you are. The authentic self is not an achievement, it is a revelation, and this has nothing to do with becoming better than others. It has to do with becoming true to yourself, to your actual nature, to the person you have always been beneath the roles and expectations. But to do this, you need to be willing to face a kind of pain that few can bear, the pain of self-honesty. The pain of acknowledging that everything you have not lived authentically until today was not because you were lost. It was because you were hiding, protecting yourself, betraying your truth, choosing safety over authenticity. It was because deep down you hoped the world would change enough that being yourself would become safe. But it won't. And this is not tragedy. It is liberation. When you abandon the illusion that you need to be someone other than yourself, you gain the freedom to simply be. You cease to be a product of expectations and become a genuine expression of your nature. You kill the seeker and are born as yourself. But understand, being yourself is not comfortable. It is vulnerable. It is uncertain. It is costly. It is lonely at times. But it is real. And that is where true aliveness exists. At this point in the journey, there is no more room for "I don't know," only for "this is who I am." And every choice you make or avoid will determine how authentically you live. There is no formula, no perfect path, no instruction manual. There is only you and the courage to be genuine. And if you have made it this far, there is one final question. Are you ready to stop searching and start being? Because in the last part of this video, we will put everything to the test. We will talk about the final choice, to remain lost or to finally accept that you've been found all along. In the end, there are only two choices. Either you live as yourself or you continue performing a role written by others. There is no middle ground. Either you embody your authentic nature or you remain a character in someone else's story, shaped by expectations, controlled by approval, forever waiting for permission that will never come. And the most tragic part, most people choose performance not because they want to, but because they are terrified of authenticity. The ancient wisdom knew that being yourself is frightening, because to be authentic is to lose the protection of roles. It is to have nothing to hide behind. It is to wake up every day knowing that if people reject you, they are rejecting the real you, not a performance. But the teachings also knew that it is only from this point, this nakedness, this vulnerability, this radical honesty, that true life begins. It is in this space that you finally stop pretending and start living. Not as someone who meets expectations, but as someone who honors their own truth. And perhaps now you are feeling exactly that, a stirring, a recognition, a discomfort. Because everything said here forces you to look within, to confront everything you called being lost, still searching, not ready yet. And see that behind each phrase was simply fear of being seen as you truly are. And now that you know this, there is no more postponing. There is no more hiding. From this moment forward, every choice you make will be made with awareness. And that changes everything. You don't need to find yourself. You don't need more healing. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to decide to be who you already are. There is no ideal moment. There is no safety. There is no guarantee. But there is now. And now is the only moment where authenticity is possible. If you keep searching, you will only be avoiding. If you keep waiting, you will only be hiding. The final question is not, who am I? It is, am I willing to be who I am? If this video confronted you, if it touched something you've been avoiding, it's because it reached you exactly where you needed to be reached. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below, I choose authenticity. Write this as a declaration, as a commitment, as the moment you stop searching and start being. And share this video with someone who keeps saying they're lost, but whom you know simply needs permission to be themselves. And before you go, do one last thing for yourself. Watch the next video. It is important, just as important as this one, because this journey doesn't end here. It has only just begun.